welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. And I'm sitting here at Sanlam Investments, Sanlam Alternatives, with Ben Kodisang. Ben has taken over as CEO of Sanlam Investments, and I call him something of a property veteran. Okay, so Ben, it's wonderful to catch up with you again. Tell us a little bit about that, the career of yours, where it started and what drives you.
Thanks, Neale. It's really great to have this opportunity of chatting to you. I suppose there's two ways of looking at this. So from a personal perspective, I had a bit of a baptism into property.
Right.
So when I was doing my articles, my brother and I saw an opportunity in Berea.
Right.
And at the time, we decided to go for residential.
Yes.
So we bought a couple of flats in Tiger Valley.
Yes.
And with Kelly, the premise that a whole lot of developers will move into the area and actually redevelop Berea as it was going through the decay phase.
Right.
So it was a bit of an education, which basically taught me that irrespective of whether you outsource the property management, stay close to your properties, because then we discovered that from letting to one tenant, which was one family, we ended up having about 3 families actually living in one apartment at a time.
Wow.
So that was I suppose a brief intro to it.
Okay.
But I mean, within the corporate space or the real stuff, I mean,
Yes.
it started for me in 2004 when I took over as managing director of Old Mutual Properties, and Old Mutual was just going through a very interesting phase at the time. So they had this very nice property portfolio, which was captive, as in all of it belonged to the live company. And they wanted to basically grow this portfolio. So I really joined at a very exciting time within the cycle, and exciting time within the business as well.
Okay, so tell us about your core function. I mean, first of all, you qualified as a chartered accountant. And I mean, how does a chartered accountant get into real estate? Because, yeah, maybe tell us a little bit of how that journey from where you came into asset management, then, I mean, with the real estate focus.
Okay, 100%. So I guess, I mean, when I was at school,
Yes.
and deciding what to do for the future, the pill of wisdom was from this one CA who came to speak to us during career guidance. He said, whatever you choose to do in business,
Yes.
if you are a chartered accountant, it just opens many opportunities.
Yeah.
So it was off the back of that then that I studied being a CA.
Right.
But my passion really was about investments. So
Right.
after qualifying, I really started, I suppose, my world of investments. And property then, from my perspective, was basically an investment class. So within a mutual property, the value that I was seeing, or the opportunity that I was seeing, was really to take a property management business, which had a development arm to it, add an asset management aspect to it, because then already I could see the trends that were happening in the industry, where property was becoming far more professionalized in terms of how it was being managed, where it was looked at from a portfolio perspective, and you started paying attention to the different exposures in terms of retail, offices, and industrial. So the value then that I saw was really to build the asset management capability, which was then looking at it as an investment, to say, here's a group of assets, they have to yield a return,
Yeah.
and so how can you add to that in terms of achieving that objective?
So you took over from the legendary Ian Watt. I mean, he was also in the industry a long time, and were you part there? Because there was quite a lot of things that happened. I think you bought over Marriott and all that kind of stuff. Take us, walk us through some of the experiences, the kind of the deals that were done in real estate, and the shift, I think, mutual properties.
So I suppose first insights basically at the time. So in 2004, I'll say there was very little data in the industry about the different portfolio sizes and about the size of the industry, and where some of the opportunities basically lay.
Yes.
So I suppose as we set about to say strategically, how are we going to move, I suppose, to claiming our dominance within the space. So one thing I knew, it was about capital. The more money you have in property, the more you can do. It sounds a bit obvious, but then that's basically what it is.
Yes.
So one of the first things then that we then did was to change the structure that housed the property assets.
Okay.
So that so that we could actually access additional sources of capital outside of Mutual. So we did that, and then what a lot of people will know is that some of the proceeds of the original sale of the V&A waterfront to London and regional that crowd
Yes.
actually found a way into our property portfolio.
Oh wow.
So that
How did you
provided,
lose that one?
so that provided, I suppose, enough ammo to start the journey.
Yes.
And the second realization was that the listed sector had actually moved and moved at quite a pace. So we had a choice then to say, do we start our own listed fund or convert our unlisted portfolio and list it at that stage? Or do we basically find someone with a few listed funds that we could just acquire and then hence effectively buy the exposure?
Right.
So Merit at the time was going through its interesting challenges, and it became available to the market. If you recall, they had SA Retail, they had Marprop. SA Retail was a retail focus fund, Marprop was a focus office and industrial portfolio. They had Ambit and they had Orings in Namibia.
Right.
So it was, I suppose, a good company to acquire, which gave us access to various listed funds, as well as, I suppose, quoted property, as I call it, in terms of the income specialist. So it was a good foray then to effectively acquire that exposure. But within the main portfolio, we were going through a bit of an upcycle within the property cycle. And we realized that the previous cycle, a lot of the properties were actually neglected. Clearly competition was increasing as more players were entering the industry. So there was a huge need for us then to look at a lot of our flagship properties, redevelop those, get them to be more competitive, more relevant, and which really started what I call an aggressive development program. So I mean, we redeveloped Cavendish as an example, joined it with then, I think it was called The Link to form Cavendish Connect.
Yes.
And at the same time taking interesting concepts in terms of making sure that they're pedestrianised Drea Street, and then we had to formalize informal trade to, I suppose, make them part and parcel of the formal retail environment. So which was quite an exciting project to work on in the Cape.
Yeah.
I mean, we redeveloped Riverside in Nelspruit because it was also becoming quite competitive as a node, and the asset was a bit tired. Gateway continued because then Gateway from phase one, which is when I took over, getting Edgar's as a tenant within Gateway really opened up a lot of redevelopment opportunities. And so we did many of the next 10 years that ensued after that.
Okay, so then from Mutual you moved to?
So after on Mutual Properties, I spent a bit of time as head of strategy, marketing and distribution for Mutual's investment business, Omega.
Okay, right.
And then joined Stanley as managing director of the asset management business.
Okay.
And as we focus our efforts more towards creating a dominant space within the continent in Africa,
Right.
Changed my focus and to focus predominantly on growing the Africa asset management portfolio.
Right. And then from there, Stanley, you now?
So now Sanlam is CEO of Alternatives.
Looks like you've done full circle
So
again.
the common thread is basically, if you look at it, I mean, I've always enjoyed property, which is a real asset, and so Sanlam was effectively looking to bolster the alternative capability. So we call them alternative capability because they're anything but traditional, and clearly we see huge opportunity in terms of growth. And the way I used to talk about property, especially when you're doing developments in emerging markets like the Africa continent. So if you think about it, okay, so we used to target tier one because urbanization will be a prime driver. So you'll target either where there's a mining, you need some anchor, I suppose, catalyst.
Right.
Either there's a mine that's being developed because then with the mine there'll be residential, and so you form a city, and so on it goes. So the initial stage is that you need infrastructure. You need to put in roads, put in energy, etc. And then that provides a great platform then to start building residential, building offices, and building retail down the line. And so we wanted to get involved then in all aspects of it.
Mm.
So within Sanlam Alternatives, infrastructure we don't quite have now, but it is one of the capabilities that I'm working quite hard to establish, because it's a key component then within the property value cycle. And then property we do have and will continue basically with an expansion. And the other area of growth is within companies in terms of private equity, so providing funding to small and medium-sized enterprises before they are big enough to list.